Now, you understand how to identify and extract assets in videos thanks to Gemini's video understanding capabilities. But let's take this a step further. What if for those assets you've identified in the videos, you could provide a link to your users which they could click, and that takes them directly to the link of the product or whatever it is that you identified in the video. That is what we'll be exploring in this video: Gemini's Google search capabilities that allows Gemini to use Google search as a tool to browse the web. Let's dive into the video.
Hey engineers, in this tutorial I'll be showing you how to use the Google search tool to grant Gemini's response in accurate data. Let's dive into the video. Hey friends, if you're new here, my name is Temi and I cover everything about engineering. For the past couple of weeks, we've been taking a look at Gemini's API features using the Python SDK. Thank you so much for supporting my channel so far. Please like the video, subscribe and share it with someone, as that goes a long way. Let's jump back into the video. So guys, as usual, this is all that the tutorials are based off on. It's based on Gemini's API documentation and also the cookbook that a lot of other developers have already put together. And don't forget, to run this, you will need access to a Gemini or a Google API key that you can directly provision from the notebook. And you would also need drive folder access for most of the tutorials in this series. Our outline: we'll be taking a look at the setup, we'll be taking a look at limitations, we'll be taking a look at what is search grounding, and we'll be taking a look at two types: one where you just search, and two where you also retrieve citations about the search. And we'll just have a quick recap and some conclusions. Limitations: before you can use the Google search tool in Gemini, you need to be on a paid tier to access it, because free tier access is currently not supported by most of Gemini's models. And in addition to this, in a day you can make at most 1,500 requests, and if you exceed that, you will need to pay about $35 per 1,000 requests after that. For setup, this is very similar to what we've been doing previously, where we have a bunch of packages like the user data package, the Google Gen AI package, and some utility functions like the daytime library, and we initialize our Google Gemini client using the API key, and we'll be using the Gemini 2.5. So before we see how to use the Google search tool, let's first understand why this is important and what it means. What is search grounding? Search grounding is a feature where an LLM uses real-time data or web database to find and verify information before providing a response to you. It ensures that responses are based on actual sources, not just what the model remembers. Now, this is really important because most of these models are trained on stale data, but through the ability to be able to search the web or to use search grounding features, models can then access the web and generate accurate information before the model or before they return responses to you. And before search grounding, LLMs could only generate answers based on their training data, but often make mistakes or they give you outdated claims. Basically, they sounded right, but weren't always reliable. And why is this important? Because without search grounding, LLMs can sound confident, but could be wrong, and grounding connects their answers to real, verifiable information, making responses accurate, current, and trustworthy. Now let me show you what happens when we don't enable search grounding and we try to ask the model for current information. As you can see here, I prompted Gemini with what was the result of Barcelona's last game, and it says here that as of my last update, FC Barcelona's most recent game was against Real Sociedad in La Liga, and the result was 0-1-0 for Barcelona, and the goal for Barcelona was scored by Ronald Araujo, and this took place on November 4th, 2023. But this is completely wrong because I said what was the result of Barcelona's last game. And today, being the 14th of October 2025, Barcelona's last game was against Sevilla, where they lost by 4-1, and that should be the information we should be getting. But once we enable search grounding through a config parameter that you provide in the model request, and that should then basically give us accurate information, because now Gemini can then use this tool to search the web for the latest information. And as you can see here, it says that Barcelona's last game was on October 5th, 2005 in La Liga, where they lost 4-1 to Sevilla. And this is absolutely correct. Now, before we proceed, I would like to show you how Google search grounding works in real life. And the best way to do this is to use the illustration by Google themselves. So when a user asks for an information, who won the Euro 2024 Cup, Gemini decides, once it has access to this tool, to either use the information in its training data or to perform a search on the web. And most times, when it realizes that it doesn't have this information, it will mostly go to the web. And here you see, it generates a query of UEFA Euro 2024 winner and who won Euro 2024. And what is quite interesting is that this is how a user like me or someone like you may actually do a Google search, and then using a Google search tool, the response is returned to Gemini, and then Gemini synthesizes the answers using the search result and then returns the response to you. Another thing that is quite powerful is that Gemini doesn't just return the response to you, but it also returns the sources that it used in generating this information. And this is important because if you're building an application that requires you to reference the source that you got your information from, you could do this because now Gemini also provides some responses or some sources in the response that it returns. And this can be accessed through the response to candidates. And if we scroll to the top here, we will see that we have things like the grounding metadata information, where you can access all the titles of the links it used. For example, we see here to answer the query of what was Barcelona's last game, it used SofaScore, it used FCT tables, and it used La Liga information and also information from Barcelona itself. Now that you have access to this information, one of the things that you can then build is a powerful feature that allows you to add citations to the response returned by Gemini. And you can do this using a tool or a function like this, where you try to extract each of the links and each of the title from the grounding metadata, and you then enrich the response back to the user with those citations. And for example, using the add citation function retrieved from the Google Gemini docs, we're able to add citations to the response returned by Gemini, where we tell you, okay, Barcelona last game was this on October 5th, 2025, and they lost 4-1 to Sevilla, but we also put some kind of citations where we retrieve this information. And if I should open this, we see here that it takes us to SofaScore, which was the first citation in the response candidate. In this tutorial, we've talked about what search grounding is and why it is important in the applications that you're building. We've also talked about how to achieve search grounding in Google Gemini, and I've shown you how to add citations to the responses provided by Gemini. We also took a look at the limitations, and these are building blocks you will come back to again and again when working with Gemini. If you made it to this part of the video, thank you so much for watching. You can support me by sharing this video, by liking it, by subscribing, and in the next video, we'll be taking a look at another type of grounding called URL context. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.